Dutty Lingo.
Wagwan Bridging and Dutty Lingo that.
I'm not Jamaican, but I sometimes feel like I am.
Oh, Dutty Lingo. Boy, for me as a yardie still, I'm even gonna say Dutty Lingo is really, is like, how dirty is your lyrics? But we're not talking dirty like are you chatting gutter. We're just saying, boy, that's dirty, that's wicked, that's bad, that's fat, that's the sickest thing I've ever heard in my life. Lingo is obviously the slang of the road, what we carry, and it's that vibrancy in our talking it, do you know what I mean? So somebody can say to me, oh, you need to speak proper English. But you know, I can do that when I'm ready because I'm articulate, but I'm from road. So we like to embrace our identity through how we speak, so we're always chop and change. So I might say to you, respect. But then I might switch that up, or next thing it'll be spec. Next thing I change it up and it be spectacles. Do you know what I mean? And I'm gonna understand what I'm talking about and feel like, boy, that's something that we own. It's a new thing, you see me?
M16, kind of the cultural gateway of Manchester. Moss Side Market was my earliest memory of kind of culture, really. Different places where people shop, bought food, the sound of kind of what can I say? My first exposure to kind of bass culture. Started with reggae music and basically sound systems.
I really started getting into sort of ska. There was sort of like a bit of a sort of like weird little skinhead revival amongst my friends, and they were all sort of into quite obvious stuff, sort of like, you know, Simmerip and Claudette and the Corporation, and then I was really a lot more interested in things like Alton Ellis and Desmond Dekker and all that sort of stuff. So I think through that, particularly for sort of like, you know, white urban kids, that sort of skinhead thing has always been quite a major influence, in the ska and the sort of music from that sort of like late 60s, early 70s period. And you can see how that sort of influenced that generation, and it's continuing to influence sort of my generation. So I think for myself, that aspect of Jamaican culture and West Indian culture has been like a really strong thing that's influenced me quite heavily.
Black Angel was a really important night for Manchester because up until that point lesbian culture had been very white, and even though when I was playing at lesbian clubs I was playing garage and soul and hip hop alongside house music, nobody was really doing it in a way that was specifically targeted towards the black community, where other people were also welcome, but it was primarily a space for black women to be and to listen to their music and enjoy their culture. And it was really quite extraordinary what happened at that night. People just came out the woodwork, people were really excited about it, and it took things to a really new place where they should have been all along, but they hadn't have been.
Dutty Lingo.
Still, there's like a taste to that still, you see me? And we'll give something called, we have enough flavour, so we'll give something like
Dutty Lingo.
Rastas, gay people, you know, mad anarchists.
I like a 40s type style, so if it's anything formal, then I'll put a suit on with perhaps with a bow tie, but it's more, I go for like either. Sometimes I put my bowler hat on, so I kind of like smart casual, but I like the way they used the 40s actually. That's probably because I grew up with those films. My mum and dad, I think every Saturday you'd have the main film, we'd all sit down and watch those films, and it would be Betty Davis, Clark Gable, who else? You know, the stars of that era who were very, very smart. So, and then of course my parents are smart, and then Jamaicans it's all about, you know, you go to church, you're smart, and then your jeans and pumps business.
From the generation I grew in Manchester, we always had a very strong history of black music. And a lot of the movements that have begun have started in these very, very small black clubs.
Understanding the stories of Windrush over to the kind of newer kind of ambitions which are taking place nowadays in business and the arts, I think there's a huge amount of contributions everyone's made, and it's part of the story of who we are in Britain.
But it immediately takes me to Jamaica, and then Jamaica meets England kind of thing. I remember when I was in primary school, and one of my teachers, well, not a teacher, but we called him Clive. He was like a PE teacher, so he was like half teacher, kind of casual thing. And he was like, "Oh, these children, all of these little English kids, they're using the word ras, and they're singing about who let the dogs out. They don't even know what they're talking about." And I just found it really funny and really interesting, because for them that wasn't an issue. I mean, cultures were just banging into each other in the playground. Some kids were from Jamaica, some kids were from wherever, and we all swapped and used the same kind of language.
Like Bristol, like Manchester, like Leeds, small Afro-Caribbean communities where it met the white community, and with it came a collaboration and a fusion of so many different styles. So my first example of music, where it was, I guess you could call it a counterculture, dare I use the word, was at 15 going to Havelock Square and going to the Blues there. Two lads from our school, their dad run it. We went down there, it was in a basement, and then the whole notion of bass bins, music of all the varieties, and that culture was very much part of my childhood.
And I love it. I love Manchester. I live it. I breathe it. Sometimes I just go and lie underneath the Mancunian Way and listen to the buzz of the city. It's beautiful.
Dubstep, reggae, hip hop, whatever, jungle, drum and bass, booyah.